You are about to listen to another episode of That Sports Guys podcast, hosted by Craig Forrestall. Find Craig on Twitter at that_sports_guy. The That Sports Guys podcast is proudly featured by NFL Draft Diamonds, your draft coverage king. So sit back, relax, and enjoy some football talk.
Hello and welcome to another episode of That Sports Guys podcast. I am Craig Forrestall. You know me from Twitter as at that_sports_guy. But today, before we get into our player profile interview, I wanted to take a couple of minutes to go over a hot topic in the world of football, and that is the debate centered around the FCS and lower divisions moving to spring ball. Now, that is something I'm completely against from the onset, and I'll get into my reasons why here in just a moment. But to move football from a fall sport to a spring sport just complicates so many things. We'll get into that, but one of the biggest things for me is the financial component of it all, right? Money bag games, body bag games, whatever you want to call them, they have a place in sports. And generally speaking, not always, generally, men's basketball and football are the only two sports that turn a profit in college athletics. So to take away the money bag game from some of these football programs is going to be detrimental to athletic departments, to athletic budgets. It's going to force some programs to make difficult decisions as to whether or not they keep certain sports going, if they need to reclassify and drop into a different division. It's just opening up a whole floodgate of just issues that I don't think the NCAA is ready for. So now, with these money bag games, the payouts range from $190,000. That was what Hampton and Old Dominion had set up. Hampton was going to receive $190,000 from Old Dominion. And then we can go all the way down to the big payout, and that's $750,000, Eastern Washington at Florida. You can go ahead, you can check out all those different prices that they have listed on herosports.com for the FCS and FBS payouts that were listed. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use Maine as my example. Maine has 2 games scheduled where they were going to get payment. One game was against UConn, the other was against Ball State. The Ball State game was set to pay Maine $400,000, and then $500 was going to be the payment they received from UConn. 2 games, $680,000. If you don't think that $680,000 had a specific plan as to how it would be used and grow the football program, you are sadly mistaken. Whether it's scoreboard, adding seating, updating practice facilities, updating the nutritional program, whatever it is, adding to the recruiting budget, there's so many things that $680,000 can go towards, right? Now, let's not get it twisted. Colleges have money. I know that, right? You can go ahead, you can look at the endowments that the colleges have. Endowments just a fancy way of saying their savings, what's in reserves. But you will not get the additional funding from the institution if you're going 3-8. Winning is the remedy for all things. Let's look at Appalachian State. Appalachian State, when they went to Michigan and beat Michigan, they were in the middle of a great run of their own, dominating FCS football. They had Armani Edwards at quarterback, got a little bit of time in the league with the Carolina Panthers. And they go to Michigan and they win. They win. They beat Michigan at Michigan and they got paid. This is an example of how not always these body bag games end up one-sided. We can look at North Dakota State, right? North Dakota State's beat their opponents from the FBS level in recent years. It's not uncommon. But now if you move FCS football to the spring, you take away that Michigan Appalachian State. You take that away. We don't know who Appalachian State is. We don't know who Armani Edwards is. He probably doesn't get that shot with the Panthers. There's so much that goes into it, right? David Pollack was on ESPN the other day. He's a college football analyst for them. And he was talking about how this is a great idea. Go ahead and capitalize on the market that exists, for the spring with the lower divisions of football. But David, you forgot one thing, March Madness, bud. How are you going to compete with that? March Madness is a chokehold on this country. They have done studies to show how ineffective people are at work during March Madness and how it costs companies tons of money in that short stretch. David, you're not competing with March Madness. You're just not. You're not. It's not happening. While the idea is great in philosophy, it just is not practical. The idea is to give these student athletes more exposure in the spring where there's less competition from the bigger schools and you're still giving people football when they want it. I get all that. But for the sake of college athletics and the sake of athletic departments everywhere, that's something that you can't do. Because aside from the money keeping these programs afloat, it also says to small schoolers that they don't matter to the NFL. And it hurts the small schools' exposure, right? So Appalachian State, they beat Michigan, and now they are in the FBS. That is right. They transitioned from an FCS program to an FBS program. Appalachian State has won 5 bowl games. They are 5-0 in FBS bowl games. They are a member of the Sun Belt Conference. They just had a running back get drafted, Darrington Evans, by the Tennessee Titans. They've put countless dudes in the league. Appalachian State is the model. Appalachian State is the example. Appalachian State is the reason why the money bag games need to stay. These money bag games need to stay because if Appalachian State never plays Michigan and they never get that payday and they don't win, there's no buzz around their program's name. They're not able to complete that transition as seamlessly as they have. You know how they always say in football, you're one play away? You're one play away from going in. You're one play away from this. You're one play away from that. Well, for these FCS teams, they're one game away. All they need to do is just have their moment. Michigan probably would have beat Appalachian State 99 out of 100 times. But it doesn't matter because they got the one that counts. So you can't say these players don't exist on NFL radars because they do. Robert Rochelle has been the topic of tweets by Jim Nagy in the Senior Bowl. Jim Nagy had something that he was doing called Small School Saturday where he was profiling not only guys from the FCS level, but guys all the way down to the Division III level. You cannot tell me that the lower divisions of football do not matter in the eyes of scouts because they do. And now let's go ahead and let's stick there with the scouts. The season ends, bowl games end January. January, February, you got your all-star games. Then you move to the combine. March is when you have your pro days. April, the draft. If the FCS moves to the spring and they start playing in January, or if they have a 8-week training period and they don't start playing until, March, and then the season goes until June, well, NFL training camps are in July. We just said the NFL draft is in April. We have completely changed the landscape of college sports. How would someone in the FCS have the opportunity to go compete at the Senior Bowl, right? You can't just say, going into his senior year, he's really good. Let's have him play in the Senior Bowl. He didn't play a single down. You don't know. You can't give someone the opportunity to play in a game based on potential when it has been earned by someone else. You've created a division with FBS and FCS players in the eyes of the NFL and All-Star games, which makes it nearly impossible to get the best talent on the field showcased for the week. And this all hurts the small school exposure, right? North Dakota State playing Oregon, everyone's hyped about that. Dylan Radins, their left tackle, 6'6", north of 300 pounds, moves like a deer, has a little bit of a mean streak to him, but they wanted to see how that held up against the Oregon defensive front. Trey Lance literally is like everybody's pick to become that number one selection overall in the draft if it isn't Trevor Lawrence or someone like that. Trey Lance holds that type of first round power. Trey Lance has that type of game. Now let's put him against one of the best secondaries in the country in Oregon. That game has a lot of meaning for a lot of players on the North Dakota State team with NFL dreams. And you cannot take that away from them. Because yes, the North Dakota State schedule that they play in the Missouri Valley Conference, it's tough. It's tough. I'm not saying that it's not. But there's just a little bit something more when you get to see them take it up a notch and go play Oregon. So aside from the money, and aside from everything else that I talked about, it hurts the exposure. It takes away from the pure sport of competition. And like how I said at the beginning, it's not all about the money. I understand the money is important from the business and administrative side to run a program. But from the pure aspect of competition, college athletics, taking away the David versus Goliath, the North Dakota State versus Oregon type games, just completely takes away from what college sports is. That's how I feel about the FCS and lower divisions movement to spring ball. Go ahead and stay tuned because when we come back, we got a phenomenal interview with Charles Heaton coming up. Hello and welcome to another player profile interview. I am Craig Forrestall. You might know me from Twitter as @that_sports_guy. But today is all about Charles Heaton III. What's going on, Charles? You're a wide receiver in the transfer portal right now, but you were with Shippensburg prior to that. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you doing today?
I'm pretty good. I'm excited to talk about you. And one of the most fascinating things that I want to know is, what's it like growing up in Philadelphia, man?
I would say for growing up in Philadelphia, football in Philadelphia isn't really known as a football state. It's more known for basketball, but it's a lot of underdogs in Philadelphia, I could say. People in Philly, they work real hard, they grind, and they just keep their head down, they work. I would say for me, my experiences, it was great. I love being from Philadelphia. I think it gets me a chip on your shoulder. Obviously, got the Philadelphia swag, and it's just being great to say I'm part of Philly.
And while you were in Philadelphia, you could kind of put together a really nice track resume, especially in high school. I did some research. Is it still true that you hold the 100-meter dash record at your high school?
Yeah, I do. I still currently hold that record.
Go ahead.
I hold that record, 1075, and then I hold me and a few relay teammates, we hold the 4x1 record and also the 4x2 record as well.
And Charles, I got to know, were you a track kid that they got onto the football field, or were you always a football player first and you just happened to run track?
It's actually funny how that started. I went into high school. I went to LaSalle College High School, which is a college prep high school. We're located like 2 minutes outside of Philadelphia. And I actually came in as a football player, and the coach wanted me to run track. And at first, I didn't really want to do it, but everyone was saying like it'll get you better. It'll actually make you a better football player, just like overall your speed and stuff like that. So I decided to go out. I didn't really take it serious at first. And actually, one of my first couple meets as my freshman year, I ran a 10.9 in 100. And I remember my track coach, his name was Coach Balecki, one of my favorite coaches to this day, said, you got to take this serious. So at that point, I started taking it serious. And just from there, I went sophomore year running 1075, which was for a few weeks, it was number one in the state. Ended up going to states, and then just my career in track just went off from there. I started taking it serious because I knew that it could help me. It could help me with football and also probably help me get into a school for college. So,
and then with football, it did help you. You landed at Shippensburg, and I just want to ask you to reflect on your career. You started for 3 seasons. You totaled 80 catches for 909 yards and 14 touchdowns. Just your career at Shippensburg, just reflect on your time.
It was great at Shippensburg. I would say my first year, started after my redshirt year. I started as a redshirt freshman. I played well that season, got a good amount of time. Started in about, I would say, 9 out of 11 games. We made it to the first round of NCAA Division II playoffs. It was great. That was a great year. It was like, I think for me, that was more of like a learning year for me to get adjusted to the offense. And then actually after that season, I was coming in ready for my sophomore year, really confident. We actually lost our offensive coordinator and our receivers coach. We lost them. They went to another school. So we brought in a couple other players to the offensive staff. We basically lost our whole offensive staff. New guys came in, great coaches that came in. Some of my favorite coaches to this day. We had to learn a new offense in like 2 or 3 weeks, and I was kind of bummed about that at first, but it ended up being my best personal season at Shippensburg, my redshirt sophomore year, which was great. So, and then my junior year, last year, similar stats, couple less catches, couple less yards, one less touchdown. So the last 2 years were pretty consistent, I would say, a little bit better than my freshman year, but that was it for my 3 years at Shippensburg. It was a great time. Played my first year as a redshirt freshman. I played primarily outside, and then once the new staff came in, I was strictly in the slot. So.
And then you talked about the consistency over the last 2 seasons.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say that that's just because you got familiar with the game speed and things started to slow down for you? Or is it just you're out there, you're playing, you're going 1,000,000 miles per hour, and you're just able to find the soft spot and just make plays during the game?
I would say at first, like redshirt freshman year, first game was a little fast. Obviously, just coming off a full year of not playing after redshirting, because at the Division II level, most freshmen redshirt.
Mm-hmm.
So after a full year off of just straight practicing, once I got to the game, it was a little crazy. But after the first game, I was ready to go. I was lights out for the rest of my career. I caught on pretty fast, and after that, I was moving. So I would say it was a little shock at first, the first game or so, but after that, like I caught on. I'm a fast learner. I caught on to the game, and I was good.
And Charles, I want to know, you're sitting right now in the transfer portal. What was going into the decision to transfer for your final season?
So for me, my intention was never to leave Ship. For me, I kind of had an idea like the season was coming to an end as obviously the pandemic worsened and other conferences canceled. It was a decision I was thinking about for like the last 2 or 3 months, that if the season was canceled, I would probably have to leave, just because for me, Shippensburg doesn't have my master's program, and I knew I already did 4.5 years at Ship. So I'm done everything for my degree. So I knew it was going to be a decision I had to make, which I was hoping it never came to that point, and I was hoping that we would be able to play so I could finish my senior season at Ship. But unfortunately, it was out of our control. So that was basically the entire big reason on why I left, because if it wasn't for that, I would definitely finish my season as a Red Raider.
And you talked about the pandemic and how it's just been a complete whirlwind. How has that impacted the transfer process?
It has. It's actually pretty slow right now, just because a lot of schools are still in the uncertainty if they're going to play or not. So a lot of coaches aren't really looking for guys at the moment to come transfer if they're still planning on having a season. So my expectation is once teams start playing, or if other leagues start canceling, it'll start picking up in about another month or so. That's what I think.
And I know we discussed a little bit earlier that you've really been identifying schools at the FBS and FCS level for you to play at. Just a simple yes or no. You don't need to tell us who you're looking at or anything like that. But have you started to narrow down your list?
Not yet. Obviously, I've only been in the portal for about a week now, so I'm still open to any school. I'm just looking around, just researching schools, getting an idea of who's on what roster, what team needs a receiver, a slot guy, somebody to make plays. So I'm still like in the early process, just researching and checking out schools before I even get close to narrowing down a list of schools.
And then you said as you're going through and you're doing your research, you talked about a need at the slot receiver position and a couple of other factors. But what would you say is the main factor for you in picking a school?
Well, the main factor, 100%, the main factor would be if the school has my master's program. If they don't have my master's program, then it would kind of be pointless for me to go, because that's the biggest reason why I left Shippensburg, because Shippensburg didn't have my master's program. So that's like the first and most important right there is my education. So
definitely. And now, you talked about it, wherever you do land, and for any of the coaches or anyone that might be listening into this, if you could go ahead and just kind of describe yourself as a wide receiver, kind of give us a self-scouting report, if you will.
All right, so obviously the first thing is I have a track background, so I can run. I can take the top off on people. I have top end speed. Also quick. I can create separation at the top of routes. I can catch for an undersized receiver. I can catch in traffic. I can make plays. So I would say that's the biggest thing, the speed. I'm strong for a small guy. So that's a lot of things that sometimes an undersized guy might be fast, but he won't be strong. I'm strong as well. So that helps me. I can catch. I can run. And then I'm a good player on and off the field. Like I don't have any off the field issues. So I think overall I'm just a great person that would be great for a program on and off the field.
And now let's stick there. You focused a lot on the field portion, but you talked about that off the field part of your game as well. What type of leader, what type of influence would you be in the locker room?
I'm a guy. I'm not the biggest talker, but for me, I'm more of a guy that likes to lead by example. I'm not the guy that's gonna really like scream and yell, but I'm the guy that if you like, I'm gonna be at the front of the line for a drill. I'm the front of the line for workouts. Like you'll see, I'm always ready for work. I'm always on time. Never been late to a workout at Shippensburg. Never missed a meeting. And that, so I'm always on time for everything. So that I'm always going to be there, and you can always count on me. That's one thing I say. Accountability is really big. That we learned at Ship, like always making sure you're on top of your stuff, because I feel like accountability is something that'll help you done football. I guess it's something, if you gotta be on time to work, you gotta do an assignment for work. I guess it's something I've always been big on, not being late to things and getting stuff done on time and efficiently.
And so, Charles, what's the ideal senior season for you? What are some of your personal goals?
For me, personal goals would be, I'm not usually a big guy on a certain amount of numbers, because for me, I take my off-season training really serious. So for me, I say that an improvement from the season before means you're getting better. So for me, I don't really have a set goal for this upcoming senior season. For me, I know I just want to improve my yards, improve my catches, and score more touchdowns than I did the year before. And for me, as long as I do that, I can know that whatever I'm doing in the off season is working. So that's the biggest thing for me. And I don't think I have a set number of what I want, though. And definitely all conference as well. Add on to that. Yep.
Definitely add on the all conference selection. Can't forget that part, right?
Yeah.
And now, Charles, we spent a lot of time talking about you on the field. But if you'll be a good sport with me, I want to go ahead. I want to get to know you off the field. So I'm going to ask you the first question, and that's, what's the song you're embarrassed to admit you like?
That's a tough one. I would probably say song by it's a country song. Actually, I don't really listen to country music, but there's one song I like. It's by Old Dominion. It's called One Man Band. I actually like this song a lot. It's like the only country song I have on my phone. But yeah.
All right. So now, Charles, what's the dream car?
I want a Dodge Charger Hellcat, all green one too.
Oh, all green. Okay, it's a little bit different. Why the green? Green your favorite color?
It's actually not my favorite color is blue, but actually one day I was just on the road and I was driving and I saw that color. Like I always wanted a Hellcat, but I saw that color. It was like more of like an army like camouflage green. I fell in love with the car. So
what's been the most memorable or interesting class you've taken in college?
It was actually a class that I took with my minor. So my minor is exercise science and coaching. Is fundamentals of coaching class. Actually, it was actually really like I liked it because it was very fun. Like I enjoyed myself in that class. So I actually took that class last semester actually. So that was probably my most favorite class I took in college.
And now I'm going to ask you to reminisce a little. I know you're in the transfer portal, but when you were on campus at Shippensburg, what was the best restaurant close to campus?
Ruga's. It's like a wing spot right down the street from the school. Really nice. They have really good wings, actually.
No hesitation. You knew exactly. Exactly where you were going. And Charles, the last question before we get out of here is, if you won $1 million and you could donate it to any charity or any cause, what would it be?
It wouldn't be a specific cause, but I would want it to go to special needs kids, definitely.
And so, with that, you said there's no particular, I guess, way that you would donate the money. Is there one particular foundation more so than others that you would donate to first?
I don't think so. I would just probably, for me, I would probably just spread the love around, just spread it out as much as I can, get to as many foundations and charities as possible.
Perfect. That's a great way to go ahead and use that $1 million.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And now, Charles, is there anything else that you want to give to our viewers, our listeners, before we get out of here?
I would just say for the transfer aspect of it, I think that a college team will get a great player, a great man on and off the field, and I think that whatever school does end up recruiting me, that I will be a great aspect and be an immediate impact player on the field.
You heard it here. Everything about Charles Heaton is positive on the field and off the field. For Charles Heaton, I'm Craig Forrestall. Until next time, stay safe and be easy.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Hey everybody, Craig Forrestall. Thanks for tuning in and listening to another episode of That Sports Guys podcast. Make sure to follow me on Twitter at @that_sports_guy to catch all the latest updates and podcast episodes. Until next time, stay safe and be easy.